We often look for growth without difficulty. We want to change without discomfort. We hope for a transformation that does not disrupt our routines or challenge our assumptions. But as I mentioned in the introduction, I'm going to talk about three different texts tonight. This week's Torah portion, which is Jacob wrestling with the angel, and the teaching of the Rebbe Rashab, who's a Hasidic rabbi, and also the teachings of Carl Jung. All of them insist on the same hard truth. Real personal and spiritual growth comes only through struggle. Without struggle, nothing essential changes. The Torah conveys this truth with unmistakable clarity in the story of Jacob. He is wrestling with an angel on the river Yabok. He's alone. He's on the verge of encountering Esau, the brother who he betrayed years earlier. It's looking pretty grim. He's finally compelled to confront the past he sought to outrun. And it is at this exact moment when escape is no longer possible that struggle begins, the wrestling. The Torah describes a mysterious figure, often called an angel, who wrestles with Jacob through the night. The text refuses to clarify the identity of this opponent. Isn't an angel, a divine messenger, Jacob's own inner torment made visible? The ambiguity is intentional. The challenger's identity matters less than the fact that Jacob does not run from the fight. It's the fight, not the opponent. Jacob does not collapse. He does not surrender. He wrestles through fear, exhaustion, and pain until dawn. The struggle leaves a permanent mark. His hip is injured. He limps for the rest of his life. But out of that wound comes a blessing. Out of that struggle comes a new name, Yisrael, Israel, which means the one who wrestles with God and with human beings and prevails. That's the beginning of the people of Israel, right there, out of struggle. The Torah is clear in its message. Jacob does not become Israel despite this struggle. He becomes Israel because of it. His transformation is not the result of insight alone, or prayer alone, or divine promise alone. It's not a eureka moment. It comes from staying engaged when everything inside him longs for escape. This is not only Jacob's story, it's a spiritual template. People are not transformed by comfort. They're transformed when they're compelled to confront what they fear, avoid, and deny. This same truth stands at the center of the teachings of the Rebbe Rashab. He taught that authentic spiritual life is not built on emotional inspiration, but on disciplined inner labor. He warned against a spirituality based only on uplift, those high moments, the moment where we feel strongly connected to God, as I mentioned, the eureka moments, the mystical experiences, looking at that mountain, looking at the nice pink sunset tonight. That was absolutely gorgeous, right? That's not what he's talking about. That kind of inspiration fades. What remains is the work. For the Rebbe Rashab, the heart of spiritual life is sustained by avodah, which is not the easiest word to translate. Depending on the Hebrew, it has three different meanings. In classical rabbinic Hebrew, it means divine service. It refers to the sacrifices at the temple. I'll skip to modern Hebrew. In modern Hebrew, it means labor. It's the name of the Labor Party. In other words, it means socialism. Didn't see that one coming from the sacrifices. And essentially what the Rebbe Rashab means here is work. Honest self-examination, resistance to inner laziness, and steady refinement of intention. This path is not dramatic, it's not quick, it's often uncomfortable, and it is real. He taught that the feelings of inner pressure, confusion, resistance, boredom, frustration, all these small negative emotions. He's not talking about severe situations like when a loved one dies. Not that kind of strong emotion, but these everyday negative emotions that in a lot of ways define our lives. We're filled with them every single day. They're not a sign of failure, according to him. They're signs that the work has reached a depth where surface answers no longer suffice. At that point, the only way forward is persistence. Serving God, he insisted, means continuing that work when the heart feels closed, when attention scatters, and when the ego resists being challenged. The struggle is not a detour from spiritual life, it is the work of life itself. This same truth emerges with great power in modern psychology, particularly in the work of Carl Jung. He teaches about this idea, the shadow. He teaches that every person carries a hidden inner self that is made up of your fears, your desires, your impulses, and I'm not talking about the ones that you like. Those fears, those desires and impulses that you don't like about yourself, that you try to ignore, that you try to avoid, that you don't want to acknowledge even exist. And that shadow is formed by everything we were taught to hide to be acceptable. What is denied does not vanish. The shadow doesn't go away. It waits. Jung warned that when the shadow is ignored, it does not become weaker, it becomes even stronger and even dangerous. What we refuse to face within ourselves inevitably returns through distortion. Those minor emotions become major ones. Anger, projection, defensiveness, addiction, cruelty, self-sabotage, the big ones. For Jung, real maturity requires what he calls shadow work, the slow, demanding confrontation with what we would rather avoid. This is not self-attack, it's disciplined honesty. The goal is not to destroy the shadow, but to integrate it, to bring what is hidden into your own awareness. When you know about those desires, when you know about those fears, it's much less likely that they're going to make that jump forward to things like anger. That's his idea. To bring what is hidden into awareness where it can be transformed. This work is uncomfortable by definition. It requires enduring some really tough emotions without collapsing into despair. It requires acknowledging impulses without acting out on them. And it requires taking responsibility instead of assigning blame. Jung insisted that without this tension between awareness and resistance, no real psychological or moral development is possible. And he was a really spiritual person. He would say spiritual development as well. He wrote this book called The Red Book, which were all his notes about his dreams. And there are drawings in there. It's full of all this wonderfully strange writing about his inner life. And then he published it. That's a brave one. Across Torah, Hasidic teaching, and this modern psychology, the same truth appears in different languages. Jacob wrestles, is wounded, and is renamed. The Rebbe Rashab teaches that disciplined spiritual work against inner resistance is the true way to spiritual growth. And Jung describes the lifelong confrontation with the shadow as the price of becoming whole. Different traditions, one shared truth: struggle is the condition of transformation. So this presents us with a serious challenge. We live in a culture that treats discomfort as a defect to be corrected immediately. We avoid tension, we numb anxiety, we distract ourselves from self-examination, but when nothing presses on us, nothing reshapes us. When nothing exposes us, nothing matures. Real spiritual growth requires that we stay in the room with what is difficult. It demands that we examine the habits we defend. It demands that we confront the ways we avoid responsibility. And it requires that we tolerate the unease that accompanies honesty. Like Jacob, we may leave our struggles with scars, with deeper awareness of our vulnerability. But we also go with something more enduring, an identity that is earned rather than imagined. Spiritual life, the Rebbe Rashab teaches, is not sustained by inspiration, but by commitment to work. I'm losing my voice. And wholeness, as Young teaches, is not achieved by denying the shadow, but by wrestling with it until it is transformed. And this teaching offers no promise of comfort. It provides something more authentic and more complex. It indicates that struggle is not an interruption of spiritual life, it's the method. All of these traditions agree nothing essential changes without resistance. We don't grow because time passes. We grow because we stay engaged when it'd be easier to withdraw. We grow by confronting what is difficult rather than numbing it. That's the one probably that's most prevalent in our culture. Everything numbs. How often have you looked at a screen today, right? Everything's numbing. Everything's keeping us away from that shadow. We grow because we accept the cost of honesty, responsibility, and change. And when we return to Jacob at the river, the story sharpens into focus. The figure he wrestles with is neither an angel nor God. It is also the shadow he's carried. His fear, his deception, his guilt, his unfinished self. He doesn't conquer it. He doesn't escape it. He wrestles with it until daylight. And when the sun rises, Jacob limps away injured but transformed. The wound remains in his body, but the struggle has reshaped his soul. He's no longer only Jacob, the one who grasped and fled and deceived. He's now Israel, the one who wrestled, stayed, and emerged changed. And that's the work of a lifetime. That's true avodah, the work of a lifetime. And that's the cost of becoming who we're meant to be.